Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dream of Fantastic Dream podcast. Today is May 12th, 2022, and today we're deep diving into the Kenobi series, exploring the lore of the galaxy and theories regarding the upcoming show. I'm your host, Skylar Gifford. Joined with me is Nick. Welcome back, buddy.
Hello there.
How you doing?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm good. I feel better, which is nice.
That's good.
Yeah,
Good.
I was talking to you earlier about me having COVID and stuff like that. So I'm sorry that we haven't recorded in a little bit. But it's nice to be back. We have very exciting news from you. You're coming to Disneyland.
I'm excited to come back.
Oh my gosh. It'll be really cool. You're going to Celebration, so that's a plus.
Super excited to come back. Yeah, super excited for Celebration. Very last minute thing. My friend was like, hey, I need a photographer handling stuff. If I got you a 4-day pass, would you still be able to go? And I'm like, okay, but what about hotel? He's like, don't worry about hotel. Hotel is covered. Wow. And all this stuff. And I'm like, I need a vacation. And I might as well use these Disney benefits while I have them. So I went on the reservation site and I saw the days I'm going were all reservations available. So I'm like, that's it. Yep, I'm going. Sign me up. So yeah, super excited.
And me and you'll be there Wednesday.
Yeah, I fly in Wednesday. I'm debating. Part of me is like, depending on price, it could be Tuesday. I'm trying to keep it Wednesday because that works for both of our schedules. Because I don't want to throw you off being like, hey, I'm coming in a day early.
It's okay. So, I can make sure with my work, and if I need to, I could probably see if I can get my schedules changed or whatever and come get you. But
I should be okay. I'm trying to keep it Wednesday. I'm also like, what if I did come in a day early, but there's no reservations on Tuesday? So I'm like, I don't know.
I have the Tuesday off as well. So I could definitely do it. So whatever works more for you, I'm totally down for.
I just feel bad because I'd be crashing at your place for like 2 days.
Yeah, it's whatever. I mean, it's nice that you can be here, so that's all that I care about.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll get there.
All right. So let's get into Kenobi. Obviously, we're both really, really excited. There's so much that this show is gonna bring to the fandom and just the overall sense of like morality of Star Wars again, which I don't think has been there for a really long time.
It's been quite a while. Like I haven't felt this vibe and energy from Star Wars probably since before Force Awakens came out. Like that's the kind of hype we're getting right now.
Oh, I agree. So I wanted to go back and kind of like work our way through like the story of Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope. So obviously the Clone Wars happened. And that was a dramatic event for Star Wars as a whole, especially where you meet Ahsoka Tano and Captain Rex, and so much happens there. And it's weird because like that whole storyline in that war, it was so big and so like vast, spreading through so many planets, but it was only a couple years.
Clone Wars, I believe, was 3 years, if not 2.5.
Which feels really weird because like so much happens in that 3-year period. So between that, there's a 15-year gap between episode 3 and episode 4. Right. And that's where you really 19. Get 19. Yeah, it actually 19. It grew because Luke Skywalker.
Because Luke and Leia are both 19 by the time A New Hope rolls around. So you're like, okay, keeping up with this. They were both actually Leia, Luke, and Ezra were all born on the same day, Empire Day.
That's really cool.
It's interesting.
Also really sad
though. Yes. Tragic.
What I find interesting is how like a government can be overthrown from like a democratic republic into a dictatorship in one day.
You can blame Jar Jar for that. That's all we're gonna do. Let's just blame Jar Jar.
I don't know if this will happen, but like you, I love reading like the comics and stuff like that. And like the books leading up to now. And like a really cool thing that they did which I think would be so cool, was the incineration of all the lightsabers.
Dude, that hit me so hard when I saw that image. I'm like, no, like I no, I will just keep this in my possession. Thank you. No need to burn it. Let's not say we did. Like that freaking broke me when I saw that. I'm like, no, not the sabers. And then they had Yoda's saber and they threw it in there and you just see it blow up and you're like, why? Like it stung.
Oh, I know. Yeah, for those of you who don't know about that, in the comics, they literally light all of the Jedi's lightsabers on fire to declare how the Empire is better than all the Jedi that came before it. And it's so sad to see.
Tragic.
And they kind of retconned it in Mandalorian with Yoda's lightsaber still.
I was gonna mention that. So apparently, because I was researching this when Book of Boba Fett came out, spoilers for those who haven't seen Book of Boba Fett, Luke is seen training Grogu, and in this like period of, okay, are you going to stay with the Jedi and have me train you, or are you going to want to go back to the Mandalorian? So Grogu or Luke lays down this armor that was made for Grogu, if you haven't seen the episode. And then he's like, well, before you take the armor, here you go. And he literally hands him Yoda's lightsaber. And he's like, yeah, so if you stay, I will let you keep this and I'll let you use it and I'll train you how to use it. And then we're all just like, wasn't that destroyed on Coruscant? And it turns out, apparently, in this book called A Certain Point of View, it apparently states that Yoda built another one or had a spare when he went to Dagobah.
I really want to see him training on Dagobah so bad.
I know.
Just like a spin-off of him.
Yoda Star Wars story.
I'd be fine with that, dude.
I'd be interested to see what happens with that, especially with the Dark Side cave.
There's a lot they could do with that specifically. Like, I love how they incorporate it with what's it called? Shoot, what was that? The game on Wii.
Force Unleashed 2.
Force Unleashed.
Mm-hmm.
How they use the cave with Yoda. That was so cool.
When Star Killer walks in, yeah, it was really neat. He's just kind of like chilling on this, and he's just like, "Hey, go on in. More power to you.
Have fun. Don't die.
Have fun storming the castle." Yeah.
But immediately after the takeover of the Empire, that's when we see the Bad Batch. Literally like the same day.
Yeah.
And obviously we're introduced to Wrecker, Omega, Tech, Hunter, and Crosshair. And they were, if you guys haven't seen it, they were tasked with killing Kanan Jarrus at the end of the Clone Wars. And the only person that actually went through with it was Crosshair. And he actually stays with the Empire after the takeover. So that's where that kind of story starts. And we actually see, I hate Crosshair, man. He is so annoying. Him.
The second he showed up in Clone Wars, I'm like, I hate this guy. I don't know what it is. I hate this guy. And now I hate him even more because of Bad Batch, especially the finale, which I'm like, I'm not going to lie, Bad Batch, it's not my particular favorite Disney Plus show. I feel like it started off super strong.
Oh, yeah.
And then as each episode went down, it either went up or down depending on it. But I'm like, I still enjoyed it, but I don't know. I'm slightly nervous for season 2 because I feel like it doesn't need it per se. But yeah. Okay, let's flesh these characters out just a little bit more and see what happens with Crosshair, I guess. So, what's my hair? What's up, Rick?
But with the end of the Bad Batch, you see the Imperial base on Daro, which has like hundreds of thousands of advanced Imperial commandos and TK troopers, and that was actually really cool to see from Legends as they brought that in.
I think it would be so cool if the Bad Batch and the squad from Republic Commando had a full-on fight between each other. I think that would be one of the coolest things to come out of Star Wars in recent years. I think it'd be great.
I kind of hate that in the Clone Wars you only get like one episode with the commandos, like really of them training, because those are one of the coolest like opt groups of clone troopers literally in the entire Republic.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's so much like they could literally make a spin-off series about them.
I would honestly have much rather have gotten a squad about the Republic Commando or a show about the Republic Commandos versus the Bad Batch. Like, I mean, the second they were introducing Clone Wars, I'm like, they're gonna do like a backdoor pilot with these guys, aren't they? That's what's going on here. And I was like, okay, I guess they are. And then like you see like Scorch taking on pretty much almost everyone in the Bad Batch, and he's almost taken them down. Like that's one public commando. Imagine you had all 4 or 5 from the game. You game over, man. Game over.
I kind of want like a full like legion of them. I don't want like a couple. I want to see like a whole unit, kind of like how they did it in Mandalorian with Luke.
That'd be cool.
But like with those characters, yeah.
That'd be sick.
So I have a question about kind of like the end of Bad Batch and Star Wars Rebels. Do you think we could see like either the Bad Batch as a group in live action with Kenobi, or Kanan Jarrus, and see that kind of younger version of Kanan as he's hiding out, trying to survive after Order 66?
I'm like, it's hard to say because I feel like it'd be cool to see Caleb Doom. However, I think if we're going to see any Jedi with Kenobi, I feel like it could possibly be Cal Kestis.
That's actually a really good transition into the next piece of Star Wars.
4 years before Kenobi. So at this point, anything's possible. Plus, speaking of, while we're on the subject of Fallen Order, did you hear that the title got leaked for the sequel?
I did.
I'm like, okay, you have my attention with this title.
It's very interesting, I will say. The new title apparently is Jedi Survivor.
The second I heard that, I heard like the Order 66 music in my head, and I'm like, here we go again. Dramatic. Oof, I'm so ready.
I really liked that game. I thought it was really well done.
I got so impatient with it. Like I couldn't get past, I think, like the 3rd level on Zepho. And I'm like, you know what? Forget this. So I just went through and watched all the cinematics. The cinematics is a story. If that could just be a show, I'd be absolutely fine with it.
I really like Colin O'Montague, isn't his name? Cameron O'Montague, something like that. Yeah.
Cameron Monaghan, yeah.
He feels like Cal Kestis so incredibly well.
Yeah.
And I could totally see him like coming into the Star Wars universe. Obviously he loves it and he did really, really well in the game, but it'd be interesting to see him in live action.
He's literally this generation's version of Starkiller, like 1000%.
Essentially.
Like I like him as a character. I wish like there'd be a little bit more about him. Because it's like all you really learn is that he survived Order 66. His master didn't. He ended up on Braca, and that's really it.
He was a scrapper. He didn't really do much.
Yeah. But he was only 16 in this game.
He was very young, yeah.
Yeah, he was like 15, 16, something like that. And it's like, that's cool. But I'm like, I honestly want to know more about his master too. Like that whole thing could be a show too, and I'd be 100% down for it.
He was like the same age as Ahsoka.
His master or Cal? Okay,
no, Cal.
I was like, what?
he's a little older, I would say. But with Fallen Order, that was the first time you were really introduced to the Inquisitors. Obviously, they're the fallen Jedi from Order 66 that were kidnapped by the Empire, and they got brutally tortured on the verge of death. Which, if you've read the comics, it's a little disturbing what Vader does to them.
Vader's a beast.
He literally has fun cutting off their arms and choking them and decapitating. It's really bad.
That's his way of training, and it terrifies me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, could you imagine if he was training Luke that way? If Luke ended up actually turning to the dark side, like that's a little disturbing, especially since he didn't know if that was his son or not yet. Like,
oh no. Like, oh, sorry for cutting off your hand. Oh, by the way, you're my child.
Emotional damage.
Jesus Christ. In canon so far, there's 10 Inquisitors. And And
Yep.
in Fallen Order, you have the second sister and the nice sister, or the ninth sister. Sorry,
The nice sister.
the nice
I mean,
sister.
yeah.
With the Fortress Inquisitorius, which you actually
Which we
see in the
see in the
trailer, which
Kenobi
is really,
trailer.
really cool. It looks really good.
It's so crazy.
And this is where I kind of wanted to give it to you, because you see the case of the Jedi relics in the background, with all of the lightsabers from the people that they murdered, as well as the helmet. So I'll let you take over for this part.
So I have two theories on this. So if you look toward the right, it was like within the trailer was beginning, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look to the right, you see these sabers in the cases. I have two theories on this. This is either Jedi they killed, or when they were in the Jedi Order, that's their sabers. And they're kind of like,
Cool.
okay, we're putting this here. This is what reflects how we used to be. The helicopter sabers are like, now this is who we are.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look closely, there's a little thing sitting in between the sabers. It's a Padawan helmet. Now it's like,
Master
is it
Skywalker. There are too many of them. What are we going to do?
you could take that as, was it their helmet, or was it Jedi they killed helmet, or was it like, hey, look guys, look what I found, cool memento? Like, I don't really know. I'm thinking about it like, yeah, it's someone they killed, obviously. But I'm like, I don't know, because we know for a fact the Grand Inquisitor, who was introduced in Star Wars Rebels, that was pretty much the start of introducing Inquisitor. But then we learned most of the majority from Fallen Order of the comics, depending on what came first for you. It's like,
Well, they were taken from Order 66. They weren't participating in the actual execution. So if anything, that would be the Grand Inquisitor's murder.
Well, that we know of.
Yeah.
Well, because we know that the Grand Inquisitor was a Jedi Temple guard. He was actually one of the guards who arrested Barriss Offee in the Clone Wars.
And the trial
this
of
is coming from
Ahsoka.
Dave Filoni, not me. So you take it from that and you're like, are all these other Inquisitors former Jedi, or were they recruited in some way? Like, there's so many questions to that, because I'm not sure. It's been a while since I picked up a comic, and I'm like, I didn't read a lot of the Vader comics, so it was mostly focused on the main Star Wars run, or Anakin and Obi-Wan and so forth. So
Right.
I'm like, did they say how a lot of the Inquisitors came to be, or is that something that's still kind of up in the air?
A lot of them were from the Order.
That's what I thought.
Obviously, I think some of them could have come from other places. Obviously, it'd be so cool to see Barriss Offee as an Inquisitor. Because that's a huge speculation. Of course, I don't think she ever was, but that would be a huge end for her to have survived the execution.
Right.
Because they weren't just targeting Jedi, they were also targeting any people that had any Force abilities.
Yeah.
So she would
Ahsoka
still,
Tano.
yeah. Even Darth Maul too.
Yeah, because he was on the dark side, but they were still after him.
I want to see if they ever, I don't know if they'll ever do this, but I want to go back to Ventress and I want to see how she kind of escaped and kind of what she did after. We kind of got it and the other spin-off Dark Disciple. Obviously she married in with the Jedi. But that's pretty much it. We never really got it in canon.
Well, I'm pretty sure that comic is canon.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, Dark Disciple is canon. We don't get that far because she gets killed by Count Dooku. So,
oh yikes,
she gone. She gone, which is really sad because I'm like, listen, they retconned a lot of stuff from the books to animation. Ahsoka's lightsabers are supposed to be green still, but now they're blue. So I'm like, they retconned a lot of stuff, especially the first 5 or 6 pages from the Ahsoka novel are pure retcon now, thanks to season 7. So I'm like,
the Malachor attack.
So now anything's possible of what could be done, because Rex's helmet was supposed to be left behind with Ahsoka sabers on, basically emulating his grave.
Yeah, it's weird it's weird that they took it. Yeah,
and he kept his helmet because you see it in Bad Batch. Again, spoiler alert for Bad Batch, but hopefully you're caught up with the timeline by now. Hopefully. But yeah, so it's kind of up in the air at this point. If they want to be like, hey, you know what, let's let Ventress survive, I wouldn't be mad by that. Not at all. And you never learn of Quinlan Voss's fate either from Order 66. As far as I'm aware, he does survive. We just don't know how.
Well, he kind of disappeared after, like, before episode 2.
He was also in Clone Wars, though, so we see a little bit of what he's up to at that point. Because he helps Obi-Wan find oh god, what's his name? He's a Hutt.
Rito?
Zero the Hutt.
Zero,
yeah. So you'll see right there that he has some really interesting powers too. He's kind of like the Tonto of the Jedi Order, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, no, he's one of the best Jedi for sure.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks that we got the bare minimum of him.
Agreed. I would love to see more Quinlan content.
So transitioning. So obviously we went through, there was the Rise of the Empire, obviously. Then that went to Bad Batch. And then from Bad Batch was Fallen Order. And then 4 to 5 years after that was now the Kenobi series. So now that's where we're starting. And I'm so ready to see how they take Kenobi's like stance as a Jedi and how it affected him and like his upbringing, like loving the order that he worked for and served for so long, and to now his trauma and to how that's affecting him and the downfall of Vader and everyone that he's lost because of it. And I think a big part of that story is going to be his nightmares.
I hope we see some like nightmare sequences. I think that'd be very interesting.
Is there any Clone Wars flashbacks that you want to see brought into live action or story arcs that you think would be really beneficial to his character?
Well, something I was going to mention, but I found out recently, literally the last like week or two, it was turned into a book. It was called Brotherhood, and it kind of goes into Anakin and Obi-Wan after episode 2. So them licking their wounds from Dooku, Anakin getting used to his metal arm, and them basically going to Cade and Ammonia and dealing with all that stuff, which is why there's that throwaway line in Revenge of the Sith that's like that business on Cade and Ammonia doesn't count. And you learn about that business in the book, which I'm like, I would have liked to have at least seen that. But I feel like even with de-aging, I feel like that sequence wouldn't be right for the show. But I'm like, I wouldn't mind if we saw some Ahsoka. I don't know if we'll see anything of Tamar Morrison or Rex, but apparently he was leaked to have been on set, so I don't know.
I really want to see Satine.
Ooh, I want to play her.
I don't know. There's a lot of people who I think could, but you have to bring a sort of, deep ambition and resilience. And there's so much to that character, being Obi-Wan's love interest, that you really have to nail.
There is an actress actually that was where some of the Duchess looks came from. She's way too expensive for a TV show like this, but the whole design and like personality of Duchess Satine was actually based off of Cate Blanchett.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
So I'm like, I don't know if they could afford her, but I think it'd be great to see her come in, play the Duchess, and do all that.
One person that I think could would be the voice actress of Anna from Frozen.
Oh, Kristen Bell.
Yeah, I think she could fit it pretty well.
If she can do the accent, for me, it's the accent is the most important thing. You have to have the right voice and the right tone for it to really sell, especially from going from animated to live action. I've seen the actress who voices Duchess. She doesn't look too far off either. So, I mean, just get Anna Graves to do it.
Going past Satine and like the Mandalorians, do you think we have any shot of seeing like the takeover of Mandalore? Obviously, that was used as like a huge base for the Empire after Order 66. So like that'd be so cool.
I'd love to see a young Bo-Katan. I think that'd be great. I would love to see a live action pre-Vizsla as well. A live action Darksaber fight between Vizsla and Obi-Wan. I'd be down for that, especially with the effects now. Like, I'm 100% down for that if they choose to do that.
I don't see why they wouldn't. It was a big part of his like journey through the Clone Wars.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I don't want them to be like, oh yeah, we left that stuff in the Clone Wars, but it's like, sure, but we can, do other things with that too. They can have more than like what, 1 or 2 rematches.
And I think that's what they do with the Mandalorian so well is they take elements from other shows and they really like make it, thoroughly into like integrated into their lore. Which is really cool.
So good with it.
Like the whole Darksaber trope that they had with Moff Gideon, how he got it was really, really smart. And obviously leading to Thrawn. Oh my god. Thrawn, I'm so
ready
for
Thrawn.
A big thing that I really want to see as well. Again, speculation, but training with Qui-Gon Jinn on Tatooine.
I hope. He's denied that he's in it, but I'm like, now everyone's gonna second guess everything because of Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, everyone's gonna deny it. I mean, it's such a big thing. Why would you? Yeah. Why would you be like, by the way, I'm also here? Like, you're gonna want to see it in that show,
right? Because I mean, it's been 10 years, so it's like you could have him in it, or you could have like flashbacks of Kenobi in exile, being like, okay, Master, what do I do? And just kind of go from there and do all that. But I don't know. I have no idea. I also think it'd be really cool if they recast Obi-Wan, don't hate me, as a younger actor and do like the meetup between Anna Graves or Duchess and Kenobi.
Like how they met originally?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because that happened before episode 1.
Yeah, I think it was 10 years for episode 1, if I'm not mistaken. Something in that range.
So like
I think it'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, their love lasted 20 something years, I would say.
Something like that. Yeah, it was a while.
And finally ending with obviously his exile and stuff like that. I kind of wanted to get into a little bit of the spoiler territory of Kenobi. This is just a rumor, but take it with what you will. But obviously they're going to need to draw out Kenobi some way. And that leads to the abduction of Princess Leia to draw out Kenobi, leading to Vader. Would you want to see that takeover of her planet and like the invading of her home before it gets blown up in episode 4?
I don't see how that'd be plausible, because you have Alderaan, a planet of all these diplomats, and at this point in time, the Galactic Senate was not destroyed. It was still a thing, very much a thing. So I'm not sure if they'd be willing to go up into Bail Organa's backyard, take the girl, and go. I don't see how that's possible. It is possible, but I don't see the Empire doing that yet. I know in Legends that was something that happened a lot, but I just don't see that happening. I mean, it's possible. I'm sure somebody would have a way to contact Kenobi and be like, hey, you're my only hope. Help me out. But I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, even in Rebels, she was doing a bunch of missions on her own, like at super young ages, like working with the Empire, kind of to thwart them and like what they were trying to do against the rebellion.
Yeah, literally 5 years from this point, she would be out doing diplomatic missions for her father. So
yeah,
I don't see Vader going after her yet. I don't. But it's established they know each other in New Hope at the very beginning, because she knows who Vader is. At this point, nobody in the galaxy should know who Vader is. So that's my only thing where I'm like, it could be possible, but I kind of hope it's not.
I feel like they were trying to retcon themselves. And they put it into a very interesting position where Vader is kind of like that demon in the shadows that no one talks about, but is always there doing stuff.
Correct.
So the fact that he has all of these Inquisitors running around for him, I think is kind of more scary.
Yeah.
Because you never know who it actually is. You just know that they're around.